Yeah, I'm going to talk about the regeneration of our island city-state from its current, from the current interregnum, I would call it. What has been said by Swee Yong and Lam Keong basically, to me, lays out the foundation, the new foundation, without which I think moving to the next stage of Singapore's development, given the uncertainties and difficulties that we are going to face, is going to be difficult. But I think if we set the foundation correctly, I think we can do very well. First, let me just say that I have really no personal interest in the resuscitation or retention of the asset value of HDB flats, because I own one and I live in one. And I never intend to sell. And at one time, I had actually thought of, in fact, I discussed with some of my political friends that to solve the HDB asset decline problem, we should turn them all into condominium. Meaning that everyone should be given a strata title. But on deeper thought, since I had already run a condominium before, I can tell you it's no fun. Because, for two reasons. One, the perception of the flat owners are very, very small and very, very selfish. Therefore, they do not see the bigger picture, and they do not want to see the bigger picture. That leads to the second point, that unless housing is regarded as a national project, we can never use housing as an instrument for the advancement and modernization of our society. And that means that housing must be a public sector project. However, there are modalities that need to be addressed. My personal experience of living in an HDB estate, I must say, over the last 12 years, has been a fantastic experience. Very gratifying, because every day I meet little toddlers like this. They high-five with me, they have eye contact with me, they talk to me, they smile at me. It's incredible, right? And this is the kind of society that we want to be. And actually, it actually happens. But for some reason, as these kids grow up and get decimated by the education system, they become Singaporeans. So I think one of the greatest achievements of the Singapore government under the PAP has been the public housing program. And I think that it is really a very, very radical program, and that has contributed greatly to the position that Singapore is in. And learning from Hong Kong, I think it's quite obvious. So what I'm going to talk about is really that we not only have to be a livable city, of which we are justly proud, we need to go beyond livability. We need to be able to live, to work, to learn, to play, to farm, and to heal all together. What does this mean? This means that we must have multi-function human settlements, okay? And the reason why we are going to have to rebuild our human settlements, our cities, our housing estates, is because no engineer will certify the structural stability of a building, of a reinforced concrete building, beyond 100 years. Because in the engineering code, engineers design buildings, reinforced concrete buildings, only for 100 years. Why? Because of what is called carbonation. When the when we have increased CO2 in the atmosphere, and in the tropical situation, the CO2 mixes with rainwater, becomes carbonic acid, which seeps into the concrete, which is only 5 centimeters from the surface. The steel bar is 5 centimeters from the surface of the concrete. Any small fracture in the concrete fissures, the carbonic acid will go in and corrode the steel bar. And that is why no engineer will certify the reinforced concrete beyond 100 years. And therefore, even when we increase the lease of the property, right, by another 50 years or 100 years, we still have to demolish after a period of 100 years. So therefore, rebuilding is necessary for all our HDB flats over a period of time. Now, this is the situation we have. This is our master plan. Our master plan is planned by town planners who are trained in Australia, Britain, and United States, where they have huge amounts of land. And all the town planning literature and all the town planning methodologies are based on land use planning. That means we put factories here, we put housing here, we put urban functions here, and so on. This is called 2D planning. For a small island city-state like Singapore, we need a different methodology. We have to move to 3D planning, right? What does 3D planning mean? There are a number of critical issues here. If Singapore is going to become an intelligent island city-state with intelligent people, we need to introduce 3D planning into our existing housing estates. These are the yellow ones. The yellow ones are our existing housing estates. These red lines here are what I call the central nervous system. What is a central nervous system? And we can only build a central nervous system when we progressively demolish existing buildings. And this is an inevitability, that's what we are arguing. The central nervous system consists of schools upstairs, shops, workplaces, civic functions, cultural functions, artistic functions downstairs. Students in the 21st century must be learning and studying in the busiest places and not in quiet places, which all our present schools are in the wrong places. They should all be demolished. The reason why we want children to study in the 21st century students to study in the active areas is so that they not only become book smart, they become life smart. That is the future. If we have people who grow up not life smart, this country has no future. So when you link up all the nervous systems together, the whole island becomes a brain. Okay? It becomes a connected synaptic system. What does that mean? Singapore's future is to be the Boston of Asia. Boston in the United States has got 65 universities and institutions of higher learning. It attracts the best and brightest from the whole world to live and study in Boston. And that is where you have the MIT, you have the Boston University, you have Harvard University, and so on. It is the brain center of the world. Singapore, if we introduce the nervous system into Singapore as a university city, in other words, the whole of Singapore becomes a campus city where the smartest and brightest in Asia can come and study here, live with our own students, we will become an incredibly productive island city-state. I'm afraid that our government has not sold the idea well enough to our people. People grumble, why are we giving so many scholarships to foreigners? It is very strategic. We must think about it this way. If you apply the 2% rule on any society, 2% of any society are exceptional people. 2% of 600 million Southeast Asians in ASEAN means there are 12 million exceptional people. If we can attract 1 million of them to live and study in Singapore together with our exceptional people in Singapore, this will be the brain center of Southeast Asia. And this is our future. Okay? So this is very crucial. On the issue of multifunctional building, 3D planning, this is the image. You live upstairs in flats, and on the ground floor, you connect it all up with one gigantic podium. This is the gigantic podium that stretches from Pandan Reservoir up to Marina South, Marina East. Okay? In my calculation, we can house 2 million people here. Right? 2 million people, not just housing, right? Because in 3D planning, let me give you the simple arithmetic. The total amount of floor space per person in Singapore is 50 square meters per person. Our planners don't understand this at all because they're only interested in land area, okay? Because of 2D planning. In 3D planning, you must know what is the total amount of floor area every human being needs to live a decent life, economically progressive life. 25 square meters per person is what we need for housing, right? So typically our houses are about 100 square meters, 4 persons, right? 3 Singaporeans and 1 Filipino maid. Because everybody occupies floor space. So, therefore, it's 25 square meters per person. And that is half the total amount of floor space. You'll be surprised. I had a meeting with Jurong Town Corporation, and they gave me the total amount of floor area of all the factories that they own. And they own half the total amount of factories in Singapore. Okay? And when they gave me their number, I divided by the population, they fell off the chair because the total floor area per person for factories is only 3 square meters for JTC. So in other words, it's 6 square meters for all forms of factories per person, right? Then you add schools, you add hospitals, you add shopping centers, offices, and everything. And I got the figures from, the only comparable figure I could get was from Fairfax County in Washington, D.C., where they have 2 aerospace industries. They have George Mason University and many of the back office functions from Washington town itself. So the total floor area of non-residential floor area in the most productive and most advanced, most developed county in United States is 20 square meters per person, right? So obviously, a high-functioning economy like Singapore and Fairfax County will be about 50 to 60 square meters per person. Now, if you were to look at, if you take the total number of people in Singapore for simple arithmetic as 5 million people, okay? 5 million times 50 square meters per person is 250 million square meters. And if you say, for easy calculation, the total island is 750 million square meters. And if you just compact everything into a 1-story building, back to back, no ventilation, no light, nothing, right? It will only cover 1/3 of the island. If it is 2-story, it will cover 1/6 of the island. If it is a 4-story building, it will be 1/12 of the island. If it's 8-story, it will be 1/24. In other words, the planning options in Singapore are enormous, much more than our planners think. I think our planners are fundamentally incompetent. So this is the crucial question that Singaporeans must ask ourselves. How do we use the land And we have a tremendous advantage because 80% of the total land area in Singapore is owned by us, by the state. Therefore, we can do things that no other country can do, which means that we can use our land and use our planning methodology, right, to do things like this, right? I see the sudden intensification, I see the redevelopment of all the housing estates and how to turn the whole of the island into a tremendously vibrant, intellectual, cultural, and economic, the best economic city in the world. And if we did it rightly, like in this project, which is a project which I did together with the Singapore Institute of Architects in 1992, that is, what is it? 27 years ago, okay? That if we have high level shading with photovoltaic panels, right? Low level shading and with compact urban form, right? We can reduce the temperature of the city, which is going to be a major issue as the urban temperature rises with the heat island effect that is exacerbated by the compaction of the city. So in other words, we have the conceptual tools, we have the land, but we need the imagination and we need the kind of political will and the daring, right? We need to really kick the bureaucrats in the butt to get things going, right? And now let me tell you one more thing. Young architects who studied with me in NUS, now in URA, just told me a few days ago that they proposed the introduction of a central nervous system into one of the huge new developments that's coming up in the Paya Lebar Airport, that land that's going to be vacated. And MOE were the ones who killed it. They objected to it. MOE are still living in the 19th century because they do not understand that students today must learn not only to be book smart, but must learn to be life smart, which means that the schools must be an integral part of the city. Thank you very much.